Now, meanwhile, households across England are facing a rise in their council tax from April as local authorities try to balance the books. Research by the County Councils Network suggests the majority of councils with social care duties are planning a 5% increase. Council leaders say they have little choice but to raise tax in order to protect services. Well, for more on this now, we're joined now by Elliot Keck, the investigations campaign manager at the Taxpayers Alliance. Now, that's a pressure group which campaigns for lower taxes. Really good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. Your response, first of all, to these proposed rises from April.
Well, good morning, firstly, and thank you for having me on. I think what these rises demonstrate is, when you give councils an inch, they are unfortunately going to take a mile. So the cap was increased from last year when previously it was at 3%, including social care, and now it's at 5%. And unfortunately, the vast majority of councils have chosen, rather than looking at their own budgets, the areas where they can make savings, they've instead asked for more of households' budgets. And that's going to be yet another damaging area of the cost of living crisis, which is going to hit households. Councils,
of course, would say that they are making savings. I mean, we spoke to a councillor in Cheshire East. They've got to make £25 million in savings at a time when inflation is at its highest for 40 years.
Well, yeah, that's undoubtedly true. There are councils that need to make very large savings, but unfortunately, one of the main reasons why councils need to make savings of that kind is because over the years they've mismanaged their finances. And we see that with councils such as Slough, Croydon and Thurrock, where they've been making wild property speculations over the years that have gone bad, and now they need to ask local taxpayers to bail them out at some point, in some cases with council tax rises well above 5%. And the thing that we have to point out is there are alternatives. There are councils, Harlow Council most notably, which are not just freezing council tax, so they froze council tax this year, but actually cut council tax last year. So there is an alternative path for councils to take, but unfortunately not many are choosing to take it.
But councils, of course, would say that this comes off the back of really strange budgets, historical underfunding, and that part of the problem is that they get year-on-year settlements rather than multi-year settlements, which would allow them to plan. And as you yourself have said, this isn't all councils, is it? And different councils face different pressures. For example, those councils who have to bear the brunt of the social care responsibilities.
Well, yes, and in cases where councils have to bear social care responsibilities, there is a separate part of the council tax increase that is just for social care. And I think, viewers will certainly think that's justifiable given the enormous pressures on social care. If without broader social care reform, as long as it's on councils to fund, that is going to have to be looked at seriously. But when you look at the broader part of council tax increase, I think what taxpayers and viewers and households are going to be very concerned about is, data that will come out this year, for example, from the Taxpayers Alliance about how many of their council bosses are paid or receive rather over £100,000, over £150,000 in remuneration, and that's something that's going to climb. And what I'd say to viewers is go on your council's website. They will publish their credit card spend each month, a bit like what the Labour Party did with government spending. Look at their credit card spend and really see how they're spending your money. Because I took a look at one council, Hampshire Council, which have warned of bankruptcy, and the last month they published data, they spent £500 at a wine supplier. And I think we really need to look at these small items of spending and the large items of spending to see if we can find efficiencies.
I can't verify what Hampshire was spending its money on. Unfortunately, I haven't seen those figures. But what, in your view, would be the alternative to council tax rises? Isn't there a risk it would be cuts to frontline services?
Well, of course, it's going to depend council by council exactly what they do with their budgets. There are some councils that inevitably are going to have to increase council tax by some extent. But, really across the country, councils need to be looking whether or not they can freeze council tax and whether or not they can freeze council tax, not by cutting frontline services, but by cutting some of the, whether it's backroom staff budgets or, various other expenditure within the council. But I think it is possible. There are councils that do it, Harlow, as I said, but unfortunately not many local authorities are taking that option.
Elliot Keck from the Taxpayers Alliance. We must leave it there. Good to talk to you. Thank you.